Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to episode 230B. Tales with TR. I'm your host, Terry Ryan Jr., here today with Terry Ryan Sr., our guest. How the hell are you doing today, Senior?
Doing very well. 72 years old. I'm above ground, got my health, so what more do I want?
That's a fantastic answer. How was summer, by the way? I don't think we've had you on in, a month, maybe a month and a half. Did you have a good end to your summer and beginning of your fall?
Yeah, summer was busy, like whatever, and watching a lot of Penny Lane, soccer, and what have you. September was fabulous. October was hopeless. So let's hope November is going to be a little bit better. But overall, like I say, I'm above ground. So
Speaking of being entertained, you went to the movie Conclave the other night, which is getting some phenomenal reviews. Not that I want to talk about movies all day, but I am curious, and we got to shoot the shit a little bit for the people out there that are listening, that are curious, that want to go to a movie this week. Should they go to Conclave or Beetlejuice or both?
definitely both. Beetlejuice is, I love the character Beetlejuice. I love Michael Keaton, and it lived up to my expectations on the sequel. And Conclave, I thought, was just brilliant. I thought Ralph Fiennes, who's a major character in it, I think he's going to get nominated for the Oscar. And the papacy and the intrigue and the conclave when they choose a new pope has always like intrigued me. And I've read numerous books on it, and to see it, it put into action, and most of it is pretty accurate. But I really enjoyed it.
Speaking of the Pope, so when did we go? 2004. It would have been 20 years ago now. I can't believe it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
22 decades.
Wow. Yeah.
So we went to Rome.
Yeah.
We spent, so for those of you out there that know the story, I won't get right into everything, the details, to spare you guys. But for those that don't, we went over there, myself, my dad, and a buddy, Francis Mooney. And the plan was to travel around Italy for 2 weeks. And we really didn't we made it out of Rome for one day. We went to my buddy's place in San Benedetto del Tronto. But when I talked to you guys about being in Italy and traveling all over, that was like other times I've been there. We didn't make it out of Rome. And I don't mean that in any negative way whatsoever, nor do I mean it and we were partying the whole time. I mean, like, we would get up, there was so much to see, there was so much to do, and on top of that, there was good restaurants, we were having a great time. But
weather, blue sky, sunny, 30 degrees every day.
it was unreal. Yes, some of those days we were just chilling. I remember jumping into the Trevi fountain just to cool off, which I don't know if the locals really appreciated. But listen, Senior, so of that now, so now you're into it, and I've often said, without being like, I'm not overly religious, but we grew up in the Catholic system, and the Christian Brotherhood was kind of ran my school system. So you learn a lot about religion, and I look at religion, as history. And so looking back now, 20 years ago, I hadn't even done one university course. I'd come up through the system, but I wasn't as appreciative as I could have been. So looking back, just because you were speaking of conclave, did the Vatican, the Sistine Chapel, of course, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, number one, I'd go back to Rome at the drop of a hat. Because I'm an historian. I love Greco-Roman history and whatever. But the city itself, of course, everywhere you look, there's a building 2,000 years old. But I love that. I love the Colosseum and the Forum and what have you. But when we went to St. Peter's and to the Sistine Chapel, I remember, walking down that long corridor, and you come to the end and go to your right. I think, pretty sure you're walking through just a normal doorway, and all of a sudden it's a Sistine Chapel it was, number one, you just can't believe Michelangelo did what he did. It's beyond comprehension that a guy, I think, was 4.5 years to do it on his back.
On his back is what got me, because when they explained to you how he did it, he wouldn't have been able to see. Yeah. And he wouldn't have, just picture this, people, like, there was no instruments like we have today. I don't know, you could have your phone and kind of look at, but like, so he's on his back and say he's drawing part of an arm, but it was so big that he wouldn't have been able to see.
No, you can't put it in perspective to look at it and say, well, that's a genius.
So he would constantly be getting down, looking at the whole thing, then going back up, and now he would have some notes and things.
Keep it in his mind, the image in his mind. But
well, because when people say, "Oh no," but you can still see it if you're. I know, but to be on his back painting it, he would have been so close.
It'd be okay if it was like if the image was 2 feet wide by 2 feet high. We're talking
the ceiling is way higher than people think. It's not like this one. No. It's way up there.
It's over 100 feet, and you're on a scaffold in early 1500s on your back, and for 4.5 years. But no, it's just incredible. That was absolutely incredible. It was, even now when I think of it, the genius, obviously one of the greatest minds in the history of civilization, and you can see why.
So I'm going to go off topic. I'm just going to go all over the place on this, and a lot of these are
scattershot.
Yeah, well, why not? A lot of these are questions that people wanted to know over the years. Your favorite sports jersey ever?
Oh, wow. Favorite sports jersey ever? Well, I know the number one, at least it was some years ago, the number one jersey in any sport.
When you say number one, what do you mean? Sales? Because that would all be skewed now.
Aesthetically, just looking at it, a beautiful jersey is the Chicago Blackhawks home jersey was number one. Now, what would be?
I bet you since you've heard that, there's been 15 teams added to each sport.
Maybe so.
But I love it. I absolutely love the logo more than anything. But yeah,
a hockey jersey made me proud of it because being a hockey player, and
is that your favorite? I didn't ask about what the critics say.
It's one of them because, I mean, you have to. It's sort of a trick question to immediately respond to, but it's definitely would be one of my favorites. I mean, it's just, and I tell you, the home Detroit Red Wing one is pretty nice too, with the wing and the wheel and Detroit and automakers, and offhand, those two are probably my favorites too.
It's true. It's those are questions that require a little bit of thought. Give us your favorite or something close to, since Halloween just passed, horror movie.
Well, I remember, I think it's the spookiest one that I went to. I was with the Edmonton Oilers Farm Club in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and it was just opening, The Exorcist. And, we went to it, Gail and I went, my wife, and I must say, when we came back we were in an apartment, every creak, it really scared me. Really scared me because it was just coming out. It was new, but wow, what an impression it made. It was scary.
You know what I think is underrated when it comes to scary movies, and I don't know if it ever gets considered a horror, but Alien and Aliens.
No, not for me at all.
Do you remember seeing them?
Yeah, I do. And it was all right. But no, like Rosemary's Baby was another one that was pretty scary. You're looking, it was just scary. The music, the whatever, but Aliens, anything like that, no, I didn't find them amusing. And
I went back and rewatched. Man, they're way scarier than I thought. It's tough to be scared as an adult. But
no, I didn't. Anything that science fiction like that is not for me.
Science fiction, wouldn't that also include a little girl's head rotating?
So. Thing is that they're in church doctrine. There are such things as exorcism. So it doesn't transcend to the point of being science fiction because, if you believe it or not, but it is part of doctrine. So, and whatever they say, priests, there's a section of the Curia in Rome that is in charge of exorcisms, and they still happen. And priests are assigned to exorcisms. I don't know. You might think it's a crock, but it exists.
If it exists, and I do kind of think it might be a crock, but that's kind of a bad way to put it. I just don't know enough about it. It's out there. It's possibly supernatural stuff that I don't know about. If Patrick Mahomes wins 3 in a row, is there a conversation?
On the board?
I'm saying, is there a conversation to be said?
Better than Brady.
Brady's got 7 now, more than any other NFL team.
Yes.
But now that would give Mahomes 3 in a row, which he doesn't have. and would also give him what, 4 overall?
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure Terry Bradshaw won 3 in a row with the Steelers, didn't he? No, 2. He won 4.
Yeah.
So it was like 2,
Yeah.
lost 1, 1, and whatever. No one has won 3 in a row. Well, I just look at if he wins another one 4 as opposed to 7. I don't know. I still go with Brady.
I think you'd have to. I think you'd have to.
Like 4, 5, maybe 6 stretch. 7. I don't. It doesn't translate to me.
The 7th, he moved to another team and then won 45, and then won it again. So and I'm just being objective about this. This question came at me for Tales with TR, and I said, you know what? I'm not sure. I saw Stephen A. talking about it. He wasn't really sure either. But not now. How can you be sure? Because it's all subjective.
Like a hockey player scores 50, 3 when 50 really was a number. One.
This is without of anything being anything. It's just championships.
Yeah, okay.
You're a quarterback. Probably has more to do with the team than 50. You can get 50 10 years in a row and not make the playoffs.
You asked me the question, and my answer would be no. I don't think he's as good as Brady. I mean, you have to consider the Super Bowl 7-3 now, even 7-4.
How big was my grandfather Clem? And did he play sports?
No, Dad wasn't. The Ryans aren't, or nor the Tulks, mom's side, not overly big men. Average probably. Dad was probably 5'7", 150, 160 pounds, and the average, because I have lots of uncles, and I'd say would be 5'8", 5'9", maybe couple 5'10", but that's it.
If you were going on a road trip across, let's just say you're leaving here, Newfoundland, you're driving out to LA, you're going coast to coast. You're going to go to, let's say Vancouver. We don't have to go into the States. Why would we? We're going to go across and see our beautiful country. We're going to go to Vancouver. Yeah, but what I'm saying, but the where is kind of irrelevant. We're going across the country. Who, your ex teammates, who would you want to take? You'd get to take 2.
Oh wow, probably. Oh, that's a trick. I got to think now. No one in North Carolina. I wasn't close to anyone there. I had a good buddy who killed penalties with me, and he was went to University of Minnesota, U.S. Olympian, architect. Lenny Lillehome was his name, and Lenny was a real good guy, intellectual, could talk, and I'd enjoy having a conversation with him, and he was really open minded. Now he didn't have a narrow mind. Well, I'm in the States, it's the best. No, he was just an educated, well, pitcher and architect, so he's open minded, I assume, and probably a guy I played when Detroit's Farm Club when I was in Kalamazoo, guy by the name of Lenny Urcandia from Trail, British Columbia, and he played 2 championships in Kalamazoo, married Miss Michigan, and he got his master's degree from University of Western Michigan, and he lives in Fernie, BC now, where he settled. I think he's got a ranch or something. Well, Lenny was an educated too, went to University of British Columbia, number 2 ranked in Canada after U of T. Very smart guy, a physical guy. He was our enforcer, but a good guy to have around, good guy to chat with.
I was driving through Fernie, like years ago, and I dropped in there. He's got a son, Michael.
I know he wasn't when I was there. Was it early 70s, mid 70s maybe? He wasn't. He didn't have any children then.
Now we're talking, because I hear stories about Lenny. I don't know many of the other minor league tough guys at the time, but was this guy a tough hombre for anybody?
NHL tough for sure. The one thing that kept him back, he wasn't a great skater. He wasn't horrible, but being a defenseman, you got it. The way to speed at NHL, you got to be able to turn. And he was, a little bit slow turning, but in terms of toughness, no doubt in my mind, he would have stepped in the NHL, and I'm not saying he would have been the toughest, but he would have been up there. He was by far the toughest in the International League. We had some tough dudes down there, but he was 6'1", 210, 215, solid muscle, and just could throw him and was mean. So yeah, he could have played in the NHL as an enforcer, but he didn't. He had a good career in the International League, used it while he was in Kalamazoo. He went to school, came from UBC, transferred his credits down, got his master's degree from, like I say, University of Western Michigan. And I'm pretty sure when he went back home to Canada, he was a teacher. He taught for 20 or 30 years, whatever. Yeah.
So when you guys would go to camp, how would you train? I mean, I'm not saying, I know he would probably pump iron a little bit more than you did, but would you guys be training in the summer? I know they say no, you eat hot dogs, but you must have been doing something, no?
Well, I'm running back then, and it's true. It's true. You use training camp to get in shape. Now, I was always sort of conscious, so I ran. I did a lot of running with a bag on and all that stuff. I didn't lift weights. No one lifted weights. It wasn't, I'm talking early 72, 73. Ran, and lots of guys, you'd come to camp, they'd be 20 pounds overweight. You could see the gut, but you used the 2 or 3 weeks, however long training camp went for, or the 6 or 8 exhibition games to get in shape. Everyone did. That's just the way it was. There was none of this. Now, of course, oh my God, it's reached. Now it's 12 months of the year.
Do you think it's 12 months of the year because of the money? Because like back then, I'm like, you still would want to make the NHL though. Like it must have, like, not just clicked on somebody. Geez, if I work out in August, I'm going to be better. You know what I mean?
In order to stay in the NHL, that's what you got to do now, because the money is so great. And this guy here, do I have to do this? He's doing that. I'm going to do more than he's doing. So you leave no stone unturned. And there's so much money at stake that you don't want to be sent down or cut because he wasn't in shape. Okay, tell me I had a bad camp. Tell me, well, something, you need to skate a little bit, but don't tell me you were in bad shape. No. Yeah, anybody.
What number did you wear growing up? I don't know the answer to this. Was it number 9 like everybody else? So why did you like number 9?
Basically, it was because I think it must have been because of Gordie Howe.
What about Rocket Richard?
I don't know if Richard was number 9. Was he? Yeah, he was. Okay. It might have been, but I'd say more Howe. But not even so much Howe. The best players in the NHL then were 9. Howe, Richard, you could go right through, and it was just it was the number you wore if you were considered the best. That's all I can say.
Was that an unwritten thing, or I mean, it must have been? But like, did people just hand you number 9 if you were the kid that was the best player on the team? Was it that cut and dry?
I at high school I was number 9, and like the all-star teams and whatever, I was number 9. So you have to assume that, yeah, they put that number aside. That was reserved for like the best player around, I think. Yeah.
Did you have a pet growing up? I don't know the answer to this either.
Yes, I did. But I grew up in, I said this before, my dad didn't make much money, and I wasn't a spoiled child by any means. I had hand-me-downs from my older brother, like a lot of kids in Canada or elsewhere. And I grew up in an apartment house. We didn't have a car, and it was a 2-bedroom, and you weren't allowed dogs, but you were allowed cats. And I love animals anyway. I'm an animal lover. I got a cat now. I've had 4 dogs. But I had a cat. Yeah, I had I don't know what you call them, just a regular cat, like not anything special. But I loved animals. I love my cat.
So one of my buddies I play hockey with, and was asking me, I play hockey with, played on the St. John's Caps, as people know, for as a senior player. I played senior for years, but my last 5 were on the Caps. And I was telling some of the boys in the room the other day, we were skating. We skate at noon. Some of the boys still come out. And it was the first time I'm talking to Newfoundland hockey players that have been disconnected from Todd Gillingham. They had no idea about him. They just heard his name. How could we now? So for those that don't know, look up his numbers. Gilly had 26 goals one year and 400 penalty minutes. And now, honestly, a lot of those penalty minutes were comical to say the least. But like I didn't know.
He played what 11, 12 years pro in
So-
the IHL, AHL.
What I would say when I say comical, he used to call. He would look. He took on everybody. He would start shit at the end of the game. Whatever he had to do to get the team to win. So it was often a yard sale, line brawl, and when you look up, Gilly had 2 assists, 46 penalty minutes, and you're like, what the hell? Just. But how would you explain him? I said to people, I'm like, God, he had so many great attributes. He couldn't skate, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Because he could do if he played pro that long, and he was such a bad skater.
Hands and he was smart. He knew the game, but he was like really couldn't skate. And but Gilly had to do that to stay on the team. If he didn't do it, he was gone. But he was at most of the teams he was on, he was considered like a heavyweight because he was like 6'4", 230. He couldn't throw him that well, but Gilly being that big, you weren't going to beat him badly because he'd grip you and haul you in, and you get a few at him, but you weren't going to beat him badly. So that's what Gilly did. He wrestled a lot, and he could throw, the odd one, but it was enough to keep him around like 10, 11 years all over the IHL when the IHL was on a par with the AHL. Oh, yeah, he had good hands. He knew the game, but it was getting from point A to point B. It was getting to B.
That's true. And I guess same question about Bird, Doug. Well, I would say intimidation factor. I haven't played against him, but I mean, Bird was good defensively. Someone brought up offense. I'm like, I never once saw him.
Was a better skater than Gilly. Oh, yeah. Now, he was good enough in this day and age. He was good enough for 6th, 7th defenseman in the NHL on his toughness alone. I mean, he picked up. If you went on the ice and this guy was on the ice, you felt good. A lot of GMs and coaches are still, that's what we want, our best players to be our best players, not being cheap-shotted. So, he could play today. I mean, Bird was on top of the fact he was bigger than Gilly and tougher than Gilly and ruthless. That's not everyone could do what he did. He was ruthless. So, yeah, Bird, he was, I think he went 28th overall. He was legit from, I think, London Knights. And no, I wouldn't want to play against him. I'll tell you, he'd give you a root.
A name that often gets lost in the 70s amongst all the great players is Bobby Clarke. What can you tell us about Bobby Clarke as a player? Because a lot of people now, he's defined by his, I suppose. But
he had skills. I played with a guy, Ronnie Wilson, who played, and Al Genevieve, who played with Clarke on the Flin Flon Bombers. I played with them in Kalamazoo, and they used to tell me stories about him. Same thing he'd do. Skilled. You can't say Clarke wasn't skilled because he was, but being a diabetic, you're figuring, holy mackerel. He was MVP probably a couple times, but his tenacity and leadership, great leader, and did what it took. Karlamov. Now, did they across the ankle, broke Karlamov? See you later, Karlamov. Team Canada wins. I don't know if they would have won if Karlamov was playing because he was going through them like a knife through butter.
So, like, chicken or egg here, because he played on the Broad Street Bullies. Yeah. Did they pick him because he was like that, or when he went there and then all of a sudden they pick up Schultz and a few more and they're like, you know what?
They built around.
So they knew drafting him that they wanted that kind of thing.
They protected him, and he was that kind of player. And they said, well, we love his because then in the NHL it was really at a, maybe not so much now, although it's still very advantageous to have that characteristic. But back then it was like at a sight. And so they saw the type of player he was. Well, now what are we going to do? Give him some skill, give him Rick McLeish, give him Reggie Leach. Okay, wonderful. Now we'll just put in Schultz, and we'll put in Selesky, and we'll put in DuPont, and we'll put in Bob the Hound Kelly, and all of a sudden we can give our skilled players a chance to play, and we'll just goon it up. And it worked. 2 Stanley Cups.
Now, it's funny because, so in my time in Montreal, even now, I tell people I went this summer to Chris Nyland's golf tournament, and it's still great to converse with people like Larry Robinson and the like, right? And I can go down the list. Serge Savard was there, Von Lambert. So this high-flying Frenchman has this. A lot of people look back and they just think everybody was like Guy Lafleur, but the Habs knocked off the Flyers. And when I looked at that series on YouTube, Holy fuck.
But they knocked him off because Sam Pollock saw what was going on. All of a sudden, their number one pick the next year is Rick Chartres. I told you this before. Chartres, toughest in the OHL, first round pick, 11th overall, 6'2", 220, left-handed. Threw him like, well, he opened me for 20 stitches over. I told you that story here. Over the left eye, we're playing him in Kitchener. He was a rookie from American. I didn't know who he was. It was my last year. I was having a good year getting drafted. And he, back then, in front of the net, now you, oh God, you can't do anything. Back then, it was like you went in front of the net. It was open season. They could kill you, literally. And he put me against the goalpost, nearly broke my back. I'll never forget. And I came up throwing. And as I came up, I didn't know who it was. I came up throwing. And I can remember my fist being in the air, and I see it Chartres. And I hit him, and he just put me to my knees, blood going everywhere. Montreal drafted him. Then they also got, well, then Robinson stepped up. Bouchard stepped up. They had Tremblay. He stepped up. Doug Risebroug's skill, but he could throw him. He could be a pest.
To beat them, they must have.
All of a sudden, they couldn't intimidate him anymore because, like, Risebrough had great character, as Mario Tremblay had great character. So they could also fight, but we're going to intimidate. No, they could score too. They couldn't be intimidated anymore. And then you still had Lapointe and Savard and Robinson, the best in the world. Then you had DuPont. And you just throw a guy like Brian Engblom in there. Who's he? I don't know. He won 4 cups for Montreal. Character guy. So that's what they had to do to protect Lafleur.
When I look at the numbers from back then, Bobby Orr's stand out to me like Gretzky's stand out to someone that grew up in the 90s. So
he was the greatest that I ever saw.
Was he that much fucking better than everybody else?
Yeah, I only saw him play once now, but I missed,
with your own eyes. You saw him on video.
I missed him by about 3 years. I think Orr graduated in 66 or came in, or I came in at 69. So I missed him by about 3 years for the Oshawa Generals, but I knew guys that played against him and whatever. But I remember back then, my rookie year, we used to go into Montreal, play the Junior Canadiens. Gilles Perreault, give it them all anyway. That year, the Junior Canadiens outdrew the Montreal Canadiens. Perreault, of course. Anyway, we got tickets. Montreal, Boston. This is when Boston were making a run at the Stanley Cup with Esposito, Honor, and Hodge, and all of them. And Montreal had Lemaire. They had them all. And we got tickets 4 deep. That we used to go by train then to Montreal. So we got in train. We go into the Hotel Martinique, it was called. Anyway, we're 4 up. And I remember, I can close my eyes now. It was 3-1 Montreal. Vachon was in the nets, and Cheevers was in the nets for Boston. It was 3-1 Montreal. Orr got the puck behind the net. He started breaking behind the net. Now we're talking Jacques Lemaire, who's forechecking, was one of the fastest in the NHL. Orr started to skate up the boards. He left Lemaire in his wake all the way down around the net, out to Esposito, bing, 3-2. Okay, the place is going nuts. Now, late in the third period, Montreal then had a defensive named J.C. Tremblay, one of the best defensemen in the NHL. Defensively, went on to play. I played against for the Quebec Nordique. All of a sudden, I don't know how it happened, Orr got the puck. He's at center ice. There's only one guy back. It's J.C. Tremblay. Orr hit the blue line. Tremblay's backing up. He hit the blue line and wound up to take the slap shot. And J.C. Tremblay went down to block it. In the same movement, he shifts to the side with the stick, gets the puck away from Tremblay's body, slap shot over Vachon's shoulder in the net, 3-3 tie, and it was like, wow, there was times in the game, the great players, the puck will follow them. or would break to a spot on the ice, and all of a sudden the puck ended up there. It was like like Gretzky could do it. He had that prophecy, or I don't know, but the great players, the puck, you'd say, what's he doing? All of a sudden, boom, he's got the puck. He was so far, and this is when Montreal were loaded. He was so far ahead. Now, I never got to see Gretzky nor play against him. He was whatever, but he was the greatest then. Now there's an argument to be made. I know that Gretzky's the greatest ever, but all I know is that Orr won 2 scoring championships, and he was a defenseman. How do you do that? I don't know. And I think he's got the greatest plus minus ever in 1 year, plus 120 or something.
Yeah, I honestly don't like to compete. To me, it's him, Lemieux, and Gretzky, and really, I whatever.
It's generational. It's tough to compare. You know, I think you compare it every 20 years. It should be, because a generational thing. Like the sticks are different now. The carbon, the sticks now. My God, you gave me yours. I played with a log, wood, and I got. Oh my God, it's a feather.
But if everybody didn't have them, or anybody, it's all relative. If we all have access to it.
Absolutely.
But I'll tell you, I did play. It's weird. I played against Gretzky. Was 39 though. It's his last year. He had a hat trick. But I'm not saying anything bad. It was way great. But when Lemieux was on his retirement thing, it's because it was back though. He was only like 32 or 33. Lemieux, I was like, he was the most impressed I've ever been. And to be honest with you, it's crazy watching him. Yeah,
ballet on skates, just so beautiful skating, and he looked like he's going slowly.
It wasn't in his prime, but it was closer to his prime than Gretzky was when I played against Gretzky. But I hate even compare. You look at these things. I mean, what do you do?
If I had to pick, and I've said it before, if I had to pick a player to build my franchise around, I'm picking Lemieux, and I think Lemieux is the best goal scorer ever. If Lemieux on a breakaway, it's a joke. It's the goalie ends up on the other side of the net, and he's just putting it in the empty net. How many? Gretzky would say that though. Gretzky would say Mario was way better than me on a breakaway. Yeah.
Leave the goalie.
Yeah, slide. Yeah. Oh, everything was dramatic, theatrical. Everything was theatrical.
Speaking of that, Alex Ovechkin, 11 games, 7 goals already.
Yeah.
7.
No, he's going to break it for sure. And it pains me to say it because I'm a Canadian and I'm a Gretzky fan, but it doesn't matter. Even if he got hurt, he's going to keep coming back now. He can play when he's 44, and his first year, his year before, he could have 6. He's going to get 6, 8. No, he's going to break it.
I know, but he has what you said this 4 years ago. I'm just bringing it up because he still hasn't slowed down. Okay.
Point wise,
Last year,
I know.
31.
Yeah.
That's the beginning of last season was the only real time because he finished with 31.
But still, he's good enough. He's not going to go down 7 goals and 4 assists. But, his numbers, obviously they got to drop. But right now, I don't think he'll get it this year. No.
He's got 7 and 11.
So
Great team.
So you're saying he's going to get 42 goals because he's 35 behind. I don't think he's going to get 42 goals, but he's going to break it. Whether it's next year or the year after, he's definitely going to break it.
I don't think it's going to be the year after at this point.
I thought that was one record unassailable. I didn't, but everyone thought Hal's was. So they're probably going to be someone else to come along, and that's just the way it's nature of sport.
The 2 I think that are unattainable would be 92 goals is going to be tough, but it's much like the DiMaggio record. Gretzky had 56 games in a row with a point.
Yeah, with a point.
56 games in a row.
Even he says that of all of them, he says, I think this is going to be the hardest to be. What it points out is total consistency. Yeah, and he played the full game. It's not like Lou Gehrig or a lot of these, Cal Ripken. Oh yeah, 2,500 games. There was games he got in the 9th inning, 1 at bat. Not so in hockey. You're playing the full game. Oh yeah, but not. No, I don't want to take anything away from Cal Ripken. But in hockey, it's a full game. Like you're playing the full game. So, and you score 50. I think that's to me more impressive.
Okay, one more question, Senior, before we take off. We want to know we went back to London, where the London Knights play, great Canadian city in a great Canadian province of Ontario just last month with Spittin' Chicklets. But outside of the Chicklets, I'm saying you were in London back when you were a kid. You were there at 7 years old. A lot of time passed in between. Was it the same place you remember?
When I was 7 years old. when I was 16 years old.
You were there when you were 16 and there again when you were 70.
Oh,
I'm saying you weren't in London. Yeah, I know. I'm saying
Oh, I was number one.
not many places I'm saying we get to go to, and then 50 years later.
Been like over 50 years, and it had grown so much, really grew a lot, and the people were so friendly. Of course, it's Canada; they're always friendly, but we had a great time. The tournament was just total class, handled superbly, and I know that the people that put it out there they'd like to have it every year, but I know Brad, uh, who's responsible putting up all the board, the hockey arenas, the what we played on, and he said he wanted it there every second year. He wanted to talk to the boys about it. So I don't.
That's up to them, but
Yeah, it is.
that's just a question came from Felix. Felix.
Par excellence.
Felix. So Felix is a junior hockey fan, and his favorite player is Easton Cowan. And he reached out to me to say, hey, has London changed much since Senior played there? So I think he meant just the place in general. And yes, look, Felix, we were treated unbelievable. Go London Knights, and I got my eye on Easton Cowan.
At it this morning, they're like third tops again every year. So
they had Easton Cowan was Player of the Year last year, Leafs draft pick, and now he's back again. He nearly made it. He was, but I mean, every
in their division again, but they're always in the hunt, right? So obviously the Hunter brothers. You played with Mark and Dale, obviously, for 15 years in the NHL. Wonderful if I was a junior player, would I love to be playing for that franchise? 8 or 10,000 a night. Oh wow.
It's a beauty place to play. Thank you, Felix, for listening. Thanks to everybody else who listened and submitted a question. It was great to have Senior on. Senior, before I go, is there anything else you'd like to plug or promote or talk about?
Something, well, I just throw it out there because I'm being an audiophile. I recently got into, not that I was never out of, but Steely Dan. They're climbing up the charts. The Beatles would always be number one. They're number two now. They've gone in front of the band, and
he's saying in his own personal preference.
They've gone in front of the band and in front of the Eagles. And if you haven't heard of Steely Dan, you have to get into them. I know you know their top singles, but their albums are unbelievable.
Give people 2 albums quickly to start with.
2 albums. Well, their greatest is Asia, and
AJA.
And their other top one to me would be Katie Lied. To me, I like that. They're all good, but I love Katie Lied.
They are good. It's a great band to get into. Folks, thank you for listening. If you're downtown St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, why don't you do yourself a favor? Go to George Street. Stop in to Trinity Pub, the Martini Bar, Rob Roy Confusion, Green Sleeves, and, of course, the Bull and Barrel. If you're going to have a bite to eat, why not try out the Loose Tie? Why not try out Blue on Water? And, of course, Wedgwood Cafe over on Elizabeth Avenue, who also do catering. If you're going to work out, strength and balance for the body and mind, go see Ryan Power Conditioning on Rope Walk Lane if you want to go. To Mr. Lube, there's 2 locations in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. One's on Kenmount Road, one's on Topsail Road. Wait, one's on Kenmount Road, one's on Torbay Road. Live, laugh, lube. Go see Chris Sparks. Why not? Also, check out the Carpet Factory while you're at it. Pitbull Pain Relief, the pain sticks that just don't quit. Go to pitbullpainrelief.com, see what all the fuss is about. And, of course, True Hockey, take what's yours. And I love my Muggsy jeans. Thank you to Muggsy Jeans, and thank you to True Hockey for supplying me.
I love my Muggsy coat. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Yes, I slipped. I for the Muggsy people out there. Yeah, last year we were in Idaho, and you gave me a jacket that was a little bit too big, but let me keep it. That's what I did with it. This guy's still wearing it.
Yes, sir. And it'll fall off. I love it that much.
Thanks for listening. Be back in just a few days with more Tales with TR. Tomorrow I'll see Halifax and Hockey Helps the Homeless, and of course next week I'll be touring with Shoresy against some NHL alumni teams. Go to my Instagram, Terry Ryan 2020, and to see our schedule. If you'd like to come by, why not? We'll be around to talk to after the game. Much rather do it in person than online. Thanks for listening. Back soon.